What if I told you that most people you know are quietly panicking about money, even if their social media says everything is perfect? Maybe you felt it too, lying awake at night wondering if you're behind, scrolling through photos of vacations, new cars, fancy dinners, and thinking, how are they all affording this? What am I doing wrong? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain. No filters, no flexing, just the real numbers behind the average person's financial life in America. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you stand, and more importantly, how to get ahead. Because here's the truth, most people aren't doing nearly as well as they look. Let's start with income, because that's where every money story begins. The typical full-time worker in the U.S. earns around $52,000 per year before taxes. That sounds decent on paper, right? But once federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, and Medicare take their share, that paycheck shrinks fast. Many people end up bringing home closer to $35,000 to $40,000 a year. Suddenly, life doesn't feel quite so comfortable. And remember, that number represents the middle. Half of workers make less than that. So if you've ever felt like money disappears faster than it arrives, you're not alone. Most people are trying to stretch a pretty average income across some very expensive realities. But income alone doesn't tell the whole story. What really matters is what people do with the money they earn. And this is where things get a little scary. Let's talk retirement savings, the future version of you who eventually wants to stop working. The typical American with a retirement account has saved around $65,000 total, and that includes people who are already near retirement age. Even more shocking, about 1 out of every 4 Americans has nothing saved at all, zero. That means millions of people are hoping Social Security will somehow cover everything when they stop working. Now let's break this down by age, because it paints an even clearer picture. People under 25 often have less than $2,000 saved. That's understandable, they're just starting out. But even in the 25 to 34 age range, savings only climb to around $14,000 on average. By the time people reach their 60s, median retirement savings hover around $88,000. Sounds okay at first, until you realize what that actually provides. Using common retirement guidelines, $88,000 only produces about $3,500 per year in retirement income. That's less than $300 per month. Think about that. $300 per month to help cover groceries, utilities, medical bills, and everything else in retirement. It's barely enough for basic expenses, let alone enjoying life. And that's why understanding these numbers matters, because if you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s right now, you still have time to change your trajectory. Now, many people assume Social Security will fill the gap, but let's look at reality. The average Social Security payment today is around $1,550 per month, or roughly $18,600 per year. And that's the average. Many people receive less, especially if they didn't earn consistently high wages during their careers. Add that to limited savings, and retirement suddenly looks a lot tighter than people imagine. Now, let's shift to the present, your monthly spending. The typical American household spends about $5,500 every month. That's roughly $67,000 per year just to maintain everyday life. Housing takes the biggest chunk, with families spending close to $1,900 per month keeping a roof over their heads. And if you live in a big city, you know that number can be far higher. Food comes next at around $700 per month between groceries and eating out. Transportation adds another $900 monthly once you factor in car payments, gas, insurance, and maintenance. Before you even think about saving or investing, most income is already spoken for. And this leads to one of the biggest silent financial problems: debt. Credit cards, in particular, are quietly draining wealth from millions of households. The average household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt.
And here's the painful part. Credit card interest rates often sit between 18 and 25%. At 20% interest, that $9,000 balance costs about $1,800 per year just in interest. Money gone. No asset gained, no future built. Just payments on past spending. And much of this debt comes from purchases people don't even remember making. Impulse buys, online shopping, dinners out, upgrades that felt justified in the moment. Now imagine redirecting that interest money into savings or investments instead. Over time, that shift alone can transform someone's financial future. Speaking of financial health, let's talk credit scores. The average credit score in America sits around 715, which is considered good. But plenty of people still struggle with scores in the 500s and 600s, making loans more expensive and opportunities harder to access. The truth is, maintaining decent credit isn't complicated. Pay bills on time, don't max out cards, avoid opening unnecessary accounts. Yet many people slip up simply because no one ever explained the system clearly. Now, let's step back and look at the big picture number: net worth. Net worth is everything you own minus everything you owe. Add up your savings, investments, home value, vehicles, then subtract debts like mortgages, student loans, and credit cards. The median American household has a net worth of around $122,000, but age matters again. Under 35, median net worth sits below $14,000. By the 45 to 54 range, it climbs to around $168,000. Those nearing retirement often reach around $250,000 or more. And here's the interesting part. These numbers are unreachable. They don't require winning the lottery or becoming a tech billionaire. They come from consistent habits, spending less than you earn and investing the difference over time. Yet many people struggle because their savings rate remains low. After taxes, Americans save about 6% of income on average, and that 6% often goes towards short-term needs like cars, home repairs, or emergencies, leaving little for long-term investing. Financial experts usually recommend saving 10 to 15% for retirement alone, not counting other goals, but many families never quite reach that level. And this brings us to retirement age. Most people assume retirement happens at 65, but the average American actually retires closer to 61. That sounds appealing until you realize Social Security benefits aren't fully available until later. So many retirees face years where savings must stretch further than planned. And retirement today can last 20 to 25 years or more. That's almost as long as many careers themselves, which raises an important question. How many of those retirement years will you actually be healthy enough to enjoy? Time moves quickly. Energy and health change. The choices you make now affect whether those later years feel secure or stressful. But here's the encouraging part. Once you understand what average looks like, beating average becomes surprisingly achievable. Saving more than 6% of income already puts you ahead. Avoiding credit card debt gives you another advantage. Investing consistently instead of letting money sit idle moves you further forward. Small improvements across multiple areas compound into massive long-term differences. If the average household spends $5,500 per month and you learn to live comfortably on $4,500, that extra $12,000 saved annually can transform your future. Over decades, those choices add up to freedom, options, and peace of mind. And maybe the most fascinating insight from all these numbers is this. Almost everyone says they want financial security, but their everyday habits don't match that goal. Sometimes it's because people assume everyone else has it figured out. Other times, they simply don't know where to start. If some of these numbers feel uncomfortably familiar, don't panic. Awareness is powerful. Just watching a video like this means you're already thinking differently. And if you're ahead in some areas but behind in others, that's normal too. Finance isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Maybe you've saved well but haven't started investing. Maybe you've paid off debt but still need a retirement plan. Every improvement counts. The point of all these statistics isn't to scare you. It's to show that average outcomes come from average habits, and changing those habits changes the outcome. You deserve better than working for decades only to struggle later. You deserve options, freedom, and security. These numbers show where many people end up, but they don't have to define where you go. And the best part? You don't need a secret formula. Just intentional choices, consistency, and a willingness to do slightly better than average year after year. So as you leave this video, ask yourself one question. What small change can I start today that future me will thank me for? Because your financial story isn't written yet. And if this video helped clear the fog around money and gave you even one new idea, do yourself a favor, hit the like button.